Nick asked, what do you plan to do to turn Murder City into America's safest big city?
Nick, I think there's a number of fronts that we have to approach that from. I mean, first, I think we got to do a better job on enforcement, the current gun laws. I think secondly, we got to try to make some gun policy changes. I think thirdly, we need to hire 500 new and additional police. I think fourth, I've talked about the need of different kind of leadership leading the police department. The name I've talked about is John Timothy, who's head of Miami. I've talked about that aspect. And then I've talked about the issue of quality schools. I've talked about economic development. I've talked about the part about personal responsibility in our communities and in our neighborhood. And, at any point, if any one of the legs are weak on a table, I always describe a community as just like a table. And if any leg is weak on that particular table, then you don't have stability of that table. And that's why I mentioned the things I talked about: policing, talked about criminal justice, talked about quality schools, economic development, as well as personal responsibility. We must keep all four of those legs strong and forthright. Let me just say this to you. We can beat this problem. New York, 8 million people. Their level of homicides over the last 15 and 20 years has dropped. But you got to believe you can reverse this problem. You put some of the necessary policies I've described to you in place, and we can reverse that title from the murder city to the safest city in America.
James S. asked, what do you believe can be done to cover the uninsured in Philadelphia on a city government level?
When you say uninsured, meaning health insurance or auto insurance?
I think that's health insurance.
Well, if it is right now in Harrisburg, we're dealing with an initiative which the governor has proposed called prescription for Pennsylvania, which I'm supportive of in the concept. It's about 800,000 people will be covered. But we have done some things already. The CHIP program for children, Cover All Kids. So we are working towards Cover All Kids. Now we got to deal with the adults. What the question I raised earlier is, how can we tie our health centers in conjunction with the governor and what he's trying to do in Harrisburg? This is something that I would look at, is how can we try to tie our health center. Look, health care to me is the most essential aspect. Look, I have health care. As a legislator, we get health care for life. I want to make sure my constituents have health care for life. It doesn't make any sense for those of us in politics who have health care in our own constituents. There's over 800,000 people in Pennsylvania that don't have health care. We should be embarrassed by the fact that people don't have health care. We should be doing everything we can, using whatever incentives we can to make sure people have health care. I want to make sure that everybody has the right to have health care, and I will use all of my political influence to make sure that that happens for the residents of the city of Philadelphia.
You talked about this at the top, but we've had some people to join since the beginning of the web chat. Can you just talk about your economic plan a bit?
Well, I've said 6 things I want to do. First, make Philadelphia the Hollywood of the East. Provide opportunities for every neighborhood. Promote small businesses, entrepreneurship. Develop a workforce and infrastructure to support the economy of the future. Make transportation fundamental to economic revitalization. Make Philadelphia the health care and the bioscience capital of the world, and increase Philadelphia's role in the global economy. Those are the 7 things I want to do. The first thing I talked about a great deal was the issue about making Philadelphia the Hollywood of the East, and basically taking advantage of a lot of the assets that we have currently and doing a marketing job to promote Philadelphia. Forming an entertainment district, calling the Kenny Gamble Entertainment District. Kenny Gamble has been a real treasure to this city, he and Leon Huff, in terms of Philadelphia International. We need to build on that. The other part of it is I've talked about the need of building neighborhood development by promoting community development corporations as a measure to promote, as a mechanism to interviews. And I've also talked about the aspect of promoting small businesses and entrepreneurship. I worked with the Enterprise Center, which is in West Philadelphia in Della Clark, and we talked about boot camp entrepreneurship. We talked about a business competition for entrepreneurship. And I believe that our education system needs to do a better job on entrepreneurship and promoting, very similar to Temple University as Small Business Development, University of Penn. Then I've also talked about connecting our workforce and infrastructure to support our economy. I think it's important to have a workforce ready because people follow jobs and jobs follow people. And it is very important that we have a workforce mechanism that is connected to the economy and where the growth is. For example, one of the initiatives that I started was the OIC initiative on hospitality training that's directly connected to the growth of hotels. So we now have between 8,000 to 12,000 hotel rooms. As that grows, that creates more jobs. We have 13,000 restaurants that is available in the city of Philadelphia. And I'm not just talking about restaurant workers. We should be talking about entrepreneurship and growing restaurants. Make transportation fundamental to our economy. I've talked about the need of predictable funding, reforming our transportation system because there's a direct connection to the transportation system and the growth of the economy. And then the part about healthcare and bioscience. I mean, we have a great region. We have some of the best teaching colleges in medicine in the world. We have some of the greatest pharmaceutical companies in the world right here. And we need to focus and be a part of marketing. And last but not least, increase our role in the global economy. We have a lot of very folks who are very important to our economy. The Chinese community, the Korean community, the Philippine community, the Vietnamese community, the African community. All of them have links to their various countries that we need to make sure that there's a seat at the table for all the new immigrants that we have in the city of Philadelphia. We need to make sure that we have the doors open, that there's welcome centers, that the world is welcome here to the city of Philadelphia. We should be extremely tolerant of every single group that needs to stay at the table that can bring something to help the image and the growth of this city. A good friend of mine by the name of Stan Straughter talks a great deal to me about the part of internationalism. Look, we have the International House, which is out there at 38th and Market, which is very much run by Oliver Franklin, which is very important. So I've listened to Oliver Franklin and Stan Straughter and Ann Callahan, who's a part of what you call the Welcome Center. Those have been the people who've been advising me about the importance of the international economy and how we're going to make Philadelphia very much a part of our global economy.
And Nancy, I'll also ask, following up on that, what are your perceptions on the emerging Hispanic leadership in Philadelphia and Pennsylvania?
Well, I think it's all positive. Yesterday evening with Ken Trujillo, who's head of Congreso, I was at an event they had. The fantastic organization, one of the major Latino organizations in the city as well as in the country. Aspire had an event last week. I was there. There is the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, which is very important. See, all of these organizations are extremely important in terms of the growth of this city. We should have welcome signs available for everybody to be a part of this city. If we are to grow this city in the future, it is important that everybody have a seat at the table. But what stands in the way of that is if there's too much violence, if the schools are not working, that can impede our ability to take advantage of every group that is now in the city of Philadelphia.
James S. asked, does expanding our role in the global economy include dredging the Delaware and expanding the ports?
I think that's definitely a part of the strategy. A good friend of mine named William Keller, who's a state rep, has probably been one of the most aggressive people about the need of what we need to do about the port. And I know there's a constant debate between Philadelphia and New York and New Jersey about that, but we need to work that through. I think that the dredging is a part of the overall strategy. And as a matter of fact, the food distribution issue is an issue. I've been listening to Representative Keller and talking about that in terms of the placement of the food distribution center in the port. The port is extremely important to this city. Those are good, livable wage jobs. We need to have good quality employment. And I want people to understand, if you have good quality employment, there's a direct connection and a reduction in violence. There's a direct connection in growing the middle class. There's a direct connection in moving people out of poverty. So we do need good, livable wage jobs. And yes, all those things you have mentioned are part of that discussion.